The majority of Brits oppose a government plan to have eyes on everyone's bank accounts to tackle welfare fraud, according to a recent YouGov poll. Critics of the plan say politicians are trying to snoop on the public and would be treating pensioners and benefit claimants like criminals, effectively reversing the British presumption of innocence. But the Department for Work and Pensions says the new law would allow the government to treat taxpayers' money responsibly by cracking down on fraud and rooting out those who steal from the most vulnerable. What do you make of this, Al? Because the classic thing would be someone says, look, I need to claim unemployment benefit, and they've got 50 grand in their account, but nobody can see it.
My instincts on this is that this is wrong. I don't think it is right for the government to just have powers to check people's bank accounts to ensure they're not committing fraud without good reason. Now, the government would argue that, that this legislation is watertight, it meets all of the correct criteria in order for something like this to be legal, and it's perfectly reasonable. But the majority of the British public agree with me. And I think it sets a dangerous precedent when you can just go, a state, or in this case, the state actor would be the bank that you hold your money in, can just have a scan of your account to make sure that you're not committing any crime. I mean, where does it stop? Do they then do the same with tax? Do they then look at the payments that you're making? My colleague Nigel Farage led a successful campaign against the NatWest Group for debanking him against his political views. Is this the thin end of the wedge to a less liberal society?
Nina, what do you think?
Well, it makes me so cross because suddenly we're living in communist China or in Eastern Europe under the Stasi.
Bear in mind, this is to stop the government paying benefits to people who've already got money.
Yes. Of course, there are people who are, playing the system. There is a certain percentage of people who will always play the system. But this is sheer hypocrisy when they are not examining the fraud that was perpetrated during the pandemic. For £15 billion.
Well, they said they're having a look at that. I know.
The Treasury, one of the Treasury Secretary's ministers, I can't remember his name, but he resigned because they were not investigating. And think of let's look at the government contracts, the handouts, the who's got this money, or, friend to business. That means somebody's getting a payoff somewhere. None of these things.
We're talking Michelle Mone.
Exactly. I was working up to Michelle Mone.
The 50 million.
Yeah, and that's one example because she's high profile.
Well, something went wrong during COVID with those contracts. There's no doubt, not necessarily Mone's, but that's different. This is about, and by the way, it doesn't necessarily mean that from tomorrow the government looks at everyone's account. What it would be, and I think this is what they're suggesting, is that when you go to claim benefits, Albie, you simply put a check in a box which says these are my accounts, and yes, you can have sight of them.
But it's
an exchange. You get benefits in return for showing you've got no money of your own.
There's just something that makes me feel uncomfortable about it. I completely understand the reasons why the government wants to do it. If you polled the public, should the government crack down on benefit fraud, I'm sure everyone would support it. But then when the government comes out with a policy on how to crack down on benefit fraud, 56% of people are against it, and I'm against it. So I probably mirror the public on this. Yes, I think we should be cracking down more on benefit fraud. Whether it's pensioners or people that get universal credit, we need to be cracking down on it. But when the policies actually come out of how it's done, it becomes a lot less popular. And this happens with lots of policies, whether it's stop the boats, whether it's reducing migration. It's all, yes, let's reduce it, let's stop the boats. But people don't actually like the policy.
One thing I've noticed in the last couple of years is that people who draw a state pension, which I guess will be me, I don't know, at some point, quite soon.
I'm nearly 60. You'll live to the age where you...
I don't, unless they make it 94, this is happening. But I'm increasingly hearing this, they're referred to as claimants. And they're referred to as being on welfare or on benefits.
It's not welfare.
Does that drive you mad?
It drives me absolutely bonkers. I am not on welfare.
You are.
I am not on benefits. I have paid my way. And I continue to pay my way.
Well, he says you are on benefits.
Nina,
this is not
pensions are paid for by the taxation of working people.
It
is part of the Department of Work and Pensions.
I know.
It is a benefit.
I know that I paid into a pension fund via a government scheme that said pension.
You thought it was a savings.
You paid an extra tax.
So no, you
Yes.
can call it an extra tax.
That's what it
But it's
is.
not a benefit.
It is a benefit.
No, it is not. Look,
exactly what it is.
I was paying. Look. Let's use a very simple example. If I was paying, you put your money into a piggy bank.
No,
okay?
it's not a savings.
That's not what you were doing.
Let me just finish this example. You put your money into what you think is a piggy bank that says pension. What you're in fact is doing.
This is a brilliant analogy.
Is putting your money into a piggy bank,
Yes.
but it is not goes into a general big trough.
Yes.
And from that, the
Right.
government picks out what they want.
Because
But on the other hand,
visualise it as this is Nina's piggy bank, and I'm going to open it and take out the money
yes,
I put in.
and that's what
But
every
it's
other
not.
pension.
So,
And
well,
it
let's
never
go.
has
This
been.
is
It should
interesting.
be, it always.
But David in Cheshire, you're a pensioner, and I gather you're happy for them to say, OK, that's a benefit.
Well, several years ago, I applied for pension credits. And before we'd finished the conversation, I didn't tell them, but they told me that I was eligible and that I'd got nothing in my bank account.
How did they know?
I reckon on their computers they'll know everything, including my inside leg measurement.
They don't know. Way. So they were able to see your assets, were they, from like just a click on the screen?
Yes, and recently they've told me that I shall be taxed off a small private pension that doesn't accrue any more than £85 a month.
Well, this is probably the thing that Albie is most embarrassed about in life, is that
Yes.
what they've called fiscal drag has ended up basically taxing tiny private pensions through a sort of weird quirk. But David, listen, the key question here is whether you're happy for them to be able to see your bank accounts as somebody who claims a pension.
Yes, because I have been 1,000% honest with them.
OK, because Nina, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear.
Well, in a way, absolutely, but that's not the point. We would give away far too much of our data. And I just wanted to say to you, David, that you're talking about a small private pension, and Jeremy knows this story.
Oh, gosh, you're going to talk about... Go on, Jackie Magazine.
I worked for that company for 12 years, and I made them a lot of money. And because I wasn't able to join the pension scheme...
In Glasgow.
Dundee, because I was a woman for many years, my private pension from them ends up at just over £100 a month.
Right,
now,
you need to take a legal action on this, because that will stop you talking about it.
No, I will, never, that's not my point. My point being, I was on the show with Alexis a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about this very subject, and somebody rang in and said they had a private pension of £100, but because of the new tax, he was being taxed £50. Yeah. I went home and opened up my pension statement, and I actually am taxed, so I only get £50.
You're joking.
No, that's what I get out of it.
So, yeah.
But you also get a triple lot
I'm paying,
state pension.
But come on, have you seen the amount
but your
of it?
state pension has risen, which has pushed your private pension into the bracket.
Exactly.
So I only get half of that
I think it's
paltry
one of
sum.
these things that the Conservatives probably are sitting tearing their hair out because it happened almost accidentally. Thank you. We need a caller from Dundee to tell us about Jackie Magazine. You need to do something. You've got to. You need justice for Nina, right? It's a terrible thing. Helen's in Glasgow, not so far away. Hello, Helen.
Hello.
What do you think about this subject of whether the government should be allowed to look at our bank accounts?
I think it's typical of this government's begrudging attitude towards people in difficulties to treat them all as if they were scroungers. I don't think they'll make much money out of it because most people's bank accounts will have very little in it if they're living in benefits. I told your researcher.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter is quite a high flyer. She paid £35,000 in tax the year before she became disabled, and it took her 2 years to get the correct benefits because of the way she was treated as if she was scrounging. And I think this government and it's ideology because they don't actually save any money with all this
Well, they do. What they're trying to do is to put people off cheating, aren't they? And they do that with the classic example is where you open the paper and there's somebody who's been on some kind of incapacity benefit and they're seen doing a kind of Russian Cossack dance at a wedding and they get their benefits taken away. And I see that story again and again. But that is a very small minority.
It is a minority.
But it outrages
scroungers.
people when it happens.
Oh, I know.
They get really
Yes.
angry
And they're
about
always
it.
dancing, and it's nearly always the same dance. But
It annoys me, and people shouldn't cheat, and people shouldn't take money that they're not entitled to. But this is, as I said, such hypocrisy that the money at the top
So,
is.
all right, we don't like this idea, Nina, but we hate it when people cheat, and we think the government should do more to crack down on benefits
this
fraud.
is not the way.
How do we do
This
it?
is not. The trouble is, we've been sleepwalking into giving too much data away. Data is key. Data is the most valuable commodity.
maybe-
Through social media, we haven't got any alarm bells on that anymore.
Sure.
We're just used to it now.
Yeah, well, we are, but I mean, maybe the government could be trusted with data. Haha. Helen, thank you. Another caller in Glasgow. Alan, hello.
Hi, good morning.
Morning. How are you, Alan?
I'm not bad, thanks. And yourselves?
Well, actually, big day in Scotland yesterday with your new First Minister. We should mention that, John Swinney.
I didn't actually pay attention to it, so...
Well, it was just ceremonial, so don't worry.
Yeah.
What do you make of this government being able to have eyes on to your bank account?
I don't agree with it at all. It could well be that people may have an innocent reason for having money in their account. For example, they could have maybe sold something or borrowed something, borrowed money from a relative or whatever. What I think the government should really be doing if they want to tackle waste and all that of money is to... sorry, I've just lost my train of thought there. Is
Tackle
to actually
waste, yeah.
tackle these people, tackle the big corporations that are avoiding corporation tax.
Yeah, I think that's, with great respect, that is a bit of whataboutery, because we do talk about that, and we do Starbucks, Google, Amazon, but we are on something else here, which is because it doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong to look at benefit fraud, Alan. So do you not think? I mean, let's take as an example, right? There's a guy who's won the Euro Millions recently, and he got about 50 million, him and his wife. Let's say that guy came to claim benefit. Would the government not be within its right to say, are you telling us you've spent 50 million in 3 months? We want to see your accounts.
I think it would be, with that one, it's a bit obvious, because especially with winning the lottery, you would need to sign up with regards to the lottery. You'd need to agree to the marketing and being promoted to say that you've actually won anyway.
I'm sorry, a lot of people win the lottery and they opt for no publicity. And
right.
So they might have. So anyone could be walking around with 20 million.
But at the same time as well, like you said as well, it should be based on trust. I don't feel easy with that at all.
Okay.